Everybody, I am finally getting around to doing something I have meant to do for a very long time. Today I am going on the Charlotte Liberty Walk, which is a little history tour with markers and monuments along the way telling a little bit of the colonial history here in Charlotte. I hope you enjoy this video. The first monument that we're going to come to is a marker for the Battle of Charlotte, which was fought in 1780. I've already done recently videos on all of the battles that were fought in Mecklenburg County during the American Revolutionary War, and if you want to know more about that battle, I'd say go check out that video because it's a pretty good one. I'm pretty proud of it. I showed every single marker and monument and talked about the battle as long as I could. But I'm going to read to you from the Charlotte Liberty Walk brochure and let you know what they have to say. In the brochure, it says, when the British invaded North Carolina in the fall of 1780, Charlotte was of vital importance. 4 major battles occurred within 90 miles of Charlotte. The resistance of the people in the Carolinas and their hostility towards the British helped to turn the tide of the war and led to victory at Yorktown, Virginia. Marker number 3 on the Liberty Walk is for the Catawba Indians and the Indian Trading Path marker. I've shown several of these markers in other videos on this channel, but we actually have historical markers all over town, including very close to the beginning of this trail for what used to be the Indian Trading Path. Today we call it Tryon Street, but originally it was a path that stretched over 800 miles from the Catawba Nation in the south to the Iroquois Nation in the north. Back then it was known as the Great Warriors Path or the Iroquois Path or the Road to the Catawba Nation. But in the 18th century it became known as the Great Wagon Road when all the Scotch-Irish immigrants, mostly Presbyterians, who had immigrated over to Pennsylvania, they were making their way south and settled in Mecklenburg County. And then eventually it got named after North Carolina's Governor Tryon. This granite monument is located on the site of Liberty Hall, which was originally known as Queens College, and we're going to come upon that marker in just a minute. This was erected in 1913 by the Daughters of the American Revolution to honor prominent early Charlotteans who were trustees of Liberty Hall. You'll probably recognize a lot of the names on this monument as signers of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence if you were here for any of those videos last month. In 1771, the Assembly and Governor Tryon authorized Queen's College, the first publicly supported college in the South. It was supported by a tax on rum. In 1772, King George disallowed the operation of the college, but the citizens of Charlotte changed the name to Queen's Museum and continued to operate it. In 1777, they changed the name again to Liberty Hall, and the school continued operation into the 1790s. Liberty Hall was used as a hospital for soldiers on both sides during the American Revolution. Today, Queen's University carries on the name of the early version of this school. From September 26th to October 12th, 1780, the British Army was encamped in Charlotte. The encampment made a square centered on the courthouse at the intersection of Trade and Tryon Streets, about 300 yards across. This marker is in the southern part of that encampment where Lieutenant Colonel Tarleton's infantry and cavalry, the Loyalists' militia, and the camp followers were located. 4 cannons of the artillery were placed in the crossroads near the courthouse. This is another historical marker for the Battle of Charlotte. On September 26, 1780, the Southern British Army, commanded by Lieutenant General Charles Lord Cornwallis, advanced on Charlotte by way of South Tryon Street. In the lead was Lieutenant Colonel Bannister Tarleton's British Legion Cavalry. They expected little to no resistance from the inhabitants. As the British approached the courthouse, they were met with a volley of musket fire from a small force of American troops hidden on both sides of the street and underneath the courthouse, under the command of Colonel William Richardson Davy and Captain Joseph Graham. The British Legion cavalry broke under the withering fire and retreated. They charged again and were driven back by another volley. Lord Cornwallis himself rode up, harangued the troops, and they advanced again. By this time, the British infantry was moving up on both sides to surround the Americans, who fired a third volley and withdrew in good order. According to local legend, and yes, I absolutely believe this to be true, on May 20th, 1775, the citizens of Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, became the first political entity in the American colonies to declare themselves free and independent from the King and Parliament of Great Britain. The Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence was signed by elected representatives in the county courthouse, a log building on brick pillars which stood in the middle of the intersection of Trade and Tryon Streets. This declaration preceded the U.S. Declaration of Independence of July 4, 1776, by more than a year. There used to be a really nice public park here, which was all about Thomas Polk and included several historical markers to teach you about his life, but that park is being demolished and turned into something else completely. Captain James Jack lived here and ran a tavern owned by his father, Patrick Jack. When the Mecklenburg Declaration and the Mecklenburg Resolves documents were signed on May 20th and May 31st of 1775, Captain Jack volunteered to ride to Philadelphia and present them to the Continental Congress. Royal Governor Martin called these resolutions most treasonable, and Jack no doubt would have been hanged if he had been caught on his ride. A bronze statue of Captain James Jack riding off to Philadelphia is located in the Charlotte Trail of History in the Little Sugar Creek Greenway, east of here at the corner of 4th Street and Kings Drive. I've done a whole video on Captain James Jack if you want to check that out, and I've recently walked the Charlotte Trail of History if you would like to see all of the other statues. Okay guys, I know we have been to Old Settlers Cemetery many times, so I'm not actually going to show those markers again. But I did want to show you, we haven't been through this cemetery since I was here a few weeks ago and participated in a cemetery cleanup program. So I wanted to show you, if you've looked at any of these tombstones on my channel over the last year or so, they look so much better now than they did. I came out here, I forget when it was either late April or early May, and there were probably close to 100 of us, all volunteering to clean these monuments. You get them wet and take off the lichen and moss and whatnot, and then you put this solution on them called D2, and you just keep that wet and scrub it after about 10 minutes and keep it wet as much as you can, and it continues to try to eat the organic material from the inside out for years after you apply it. That's how they keep all the monuments in like Arlington so sparkly and shiny. Of course, I show up on landscaping day. You can probably hear that is the hardy plot, and unfortunately I came here to film in this cemetery back in October. And just a few days after I was here, Hurricane Helene came through and brought an enormous oak tree, probably 100-year-old oak tree down, and absolutely smashed this plot. It was so sad. There are fundraisers to try to restore it and fix it up. But this is a good example for people who want to know about headstones, grave markers that are above the ground. The person is still buried 6 feet below the ground. This is all ornamentation. There's no above ground burial like that. But yeah, this just got completely smashed up by a tree that fell on it. However, I just wanted to show you how sparkling clean so many of these monuments are. I'm going to try to find the ones I cleaned. I wanted to clean Thomas Polk over there, but somebody else beat me to him. Someone cleaned the George Washington monument. I cleaned, okay, let me think. This one? I can't remember if I did these two. I think I was just talking to the person. Okay, I did this one, that one. 1, 2, 3. I know I did a total of 8. 1, 2, 3. This one right here. Me and my buddy. I buddied up with someone. Interestingly enough, the person I buddied up with, she has an ancestor who designed this, that, and that monument. I can't remember if we did those two, but I know we did this one, and that one. This above ground, And I know we did all three of these. These are all three infant daughters. But look how sparkling clean they look. These were so covered in lichen and organic material, you would have not been able to read anything. Look at that. Look how, I know there's some bird poop on it now. Wow. And I think we started this guy, but that was about the time our get together ended. All right, I'm sorry about the background noise. It doesn't matter what I do. I always show up on landscaping day. I just wanted to show you Thomas Polk. Oh, is this new? When did he get this marker? Wow, that's beautiful. That's new, guys. That hasn't ever been here before. I'm so glad he got all cleaned up for his new marker. But unfortunately, there are photos of his tombstone from, I think, the 1970s, where you can read what was on it, but you absolutely cannot read any longer. All right, let's get out of here. It's too loud. I am just so impressed how sparkling white and beautiful this cemetery looks now, though. Gorgeous. I learned something about settlers when we were here for the monument cleanup. There were actually a lot of slaves that were buried here on this end of the cemetery where there are no markers. And I think the city has done a really good job keeping it clean and tidy. And it's too bad that we don't have markers for all of these people that are buried here, but I'm glad to know that they're here. I thought this end of the cemetery was just empty. No one was ever buried here. And I feel like they deserve some kind of a monument or a marker just to say, we know there's people resting here. Let's all be respectful. But yeah, it's cleanup day, but the city's making this cemetery look great. In the Battle of Charlotte, two groups defended the courthouse in the middle of Trade and Tryon streets. After firing 3 volleys to good effect and causing the British Legion cavalry to draw backwards and reform, the Americans retreated up the Salisbury Road, which is today North Tryon Street, past this spot. Farther up the road, they stopped twice to form a defensive line, delaying the British advance each time. By the time the British reached the main American force 8 miles north of town, it was late in the day and they withdrew to Charlotte. The Southern British Army occupied Charlotte for 16 days and then, after hearing of the American victory at Kings Mountain, retreated back to South Carolina. Recently, Michael asked me why Charlotte is located in Mecklenburg County and where the name Mecklenburg came from, and I had to look it up. This statue here is of Queen Charlotte in her garden with her dogs, and it was privately funded and for many years preserved and maintained by the Bank of America. Mecklenburg County was named in honor of Princess Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, who was married to King George III shortly before the county was formed in 1763. The city of Charlotte was named in her honor when it was established in 1768. Dr. Ephraim Brevard was a prominent local patriot. Although blind in one eye, he attended college in Princeton, New Jersey, trained as a doctor, and taught at Queens College, where he was also a trustee. He married Martha, the daughter of Thomas Polk and Susanna Spratt, and had a hand in writing both the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence and the Mecklenburg Resolves. He served as an officer and later as a surgeon during the Revolutionary War and was captured at the fall of Charleston in 1780. As an officer, he could have signed a parole and been sent home, but he chose to stay on in Charleston to minister to the American prisoners. In doing so, he contracted the same fever that killed so many of his fellow soldiers. He returned to Mecklenburg, where he died at age only 35. Here stood the house of Colonel Thomas Polk, the founder of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. Polk's home was used by General Cornwallis as his headquarters when the British occupied Charlotte in the autumn of 1780. President George Washington visited Charlotte on May 28 of 1791 and was entertained here. For over 100 years, Polk's house was Charlotte's leading tourist attraction. After the American defeat at the Battle of Camden, South Carolina, Congress relieved General Horatio Gates of command. General George Washington chose General Nathanael Greene to replace Gates as the commander in the South. Greene took command near this spot. Greene reorganized the American Army and caused Lord Cornwallis to lead the British Army through North Carolina and to a major battle at Guilford Courthouse near present-day Greensboro, North Carolina. After this battle, the British forces were so weakened that they retreated to the coast. Eventually, they marched north to Virginia, where they were defeated at the Siege of Yorktown. On May 31st of 1775, the Mecklenburg Committee adopted a set of radical resolutions which annulled all laws dictated by the King and Parliament and set forth new laws for governing the now independent Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County citizens began governing themselves more than a year before the Continental Congress finally severed ties with Britain. The resolves, which are different from the Mecklenburg Declaration, have confused historians ever since.